Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, I am super excited to welcome Darrell Evans back onto the show. You may have remembered him from the episode that we did with 4 of us, where we were talking about strategies that get in the way of business growth. And so Darrell's back today to be diving a little bit deeper. And we're going to be talking about customer acquisition. We're going to be talking about visibility. And we're going to be talking about a really incredible strategy that he has for raising visibility for only $1 a day, which is pretty cool and something I'm currently experimenting with thanks to Darrell. So Darrell, thanks so much for being here. I'm excited you're back on the show.
Hey, Krista, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me back. Let's dive in.
Absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about Darrell, and then we are going to get to all the good stuff. So Darrell is a serial entrepreneur. He's an investor, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Yokel Local Internet Marketing, which is a digital marketing agency based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. He and his team have helped businesses generate over $300 million in revenue online, and he's personally started and operated 6 businesses since the age of 20, which is pretty impressive. He is the host of the Growth Driven Entrepreneur podcast, which you can find an episode with me on there if you go and check that out. And he is the founder of the Growth Driven Entrepreneur community and the Mindshift Business Academy, where he trains business owners on his signature growth frameworks. All right, Darrell, let's talk all things visibility. And I want to start right away with, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing today when it comes to raising visibility and actually acquiring new customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. It depends on where the listener is coming from in business. And there's a couple of perspectives. There's the entrepreneurs like me and you who've been around for a few decades, and we sort of understand what the world looked like before the internet or right when the internet was starting and it wasn't really a thing. And so when I think about entrepreneurs who've been in business who are already successful, which are the entrepreneurs that I tend to work with, they've been successful for 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years plus. One of my clients is 43 years. They've had their company, and I've had a number of companies that have been in the 30 decade plus, and they're struggling to transition to online. And they struggle for one primary reason. And it is that what they used to do to grow their business, typical marketing back then, which was offline, belly to belly, cold calling, door knocking, going to trade shows, going to events, even billboard, radio, and TV, those types of marketing and advertising channels, it's not that they don't work. It's just that the consumer behavior has shifted to social media, to online. And then we have some things called technology things that give us choice. For example, I don't have to take your call anymore because I can put up an automatic thing on my phone that says, if I don't know your number, send the call straight to voicemail. If I don't want your text message that you sent out through your texting system, I just reply stop. If I go on social media and I see your ad and I don't like your ad, I can hit the 3 dots on Meta or Facebook and say, don't show this advertiser to me ever again. On my computer screen, I can block ads on the pop-up. I can go down the line, but this is the shift. And a lot of businesses and business owners, CEOs, executives, even marketing experts and people that are really in the industry as a craft, they're not adjusting to consumer behavior. They're not meeting people where they are, and they're not meeting them how they want to be met. So some of these businesses that have been around seasoned, they are so used to referrals. They're so used to word of mouth marketing. They're so used to networking. They're so used to getting business that was high probability, trust based referrals. And the interesting part about it is when I asked them, Krista, how did you convert the business when you got the referral? They walk me down the path of saying, Well, I'd usually call them. We'd have a meeting. Maybe we met in the marketplace for coffee. And I said, "So did you close the deal the first time you met them?" And they're like, "No, no, no. We just usually met just to meet each other and talk and get to know each other and network a bit." Ah, okay, great. So then how did you proceed with closing the business? And they'd almost inevitably say something like, "Well, usually it was a few more meetings, and maybe even at that time, there was nothing they really needed from us at that time. But then somewhere about 8, 10, 12 months later, maybe 2 years later, they decided to buy from us." Oh, isn't that interesting? But Krista, what they do is they come online and they think because you can put up a Facebook ad in a couple of hours, and you can put it up for $5 a day or $10 a day or whatever your budget is, and it starts getting impressions and clicks the same day, and it will. They just expect people to be ready to buy the day that someone interacted with their ad. That's problem number one, is misunderstanding the distinction between the way we used to do it and how it works online. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't work any different. The person online just met you for the first time, and you're expecting to close the deal today, just like a guy talked to yesterday. So, without belaboring it, that's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I remember those days very well. I literally used to take out ads in the local paper and magazines. I used to do postcards and mail them. I mean, back in the day, it was very old school. It was trying to figure out who you knew and getting lunch dates with the CEO or CIO, in my case, of a lot of different companies,
Right.
right? And I think so often people forget that the principles are still exactly the same. It's just the tools and technology and mechanisms that you use that have evolved and given you
Yeah.
more options. But I do think sometimes people, because everything is so fast paced and we're so conditioned for immediacy in what we're looking for, that we forget that things actually take time. And it's still, at the end of the day, a relationship game. Do people know you? Do they trust you? Do they actually believe that you can help them? And is what you're offering what they need right now?
Right. 100%. You nailed it. You just nailed it. The minute we understand that, the minute we get that last point that you said better than I would have said, the minute we realize that the game of know, like, and trust, which we all believed worked when we had the old school marketing mindset and the old school relationship building mindset, if we took that approach online, and I actually almost called the program that we're going to discuss, or the strategy we're going to discuss, I almost called it the KLT
Nice.
formula, the know, like, and trust formula, but I didn't think it was going to sell. So I actually changed the name. But the point is, it's right. If we get that right, you won't ever have scarcity of leads. You won't ever have to worry about not being known in your marketplace. And the reality is, some will, some won't. So what? Next. And that's just an ideology about how to approach what you expect the outcome to be of any ad creative, of any marketing creative, of any marketing campaign. Sure, you got to set goals, but you have to be detached from the outcome and realize that it's an asset. Every campaign you build is an asset if you do it right.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed this too, but one thing I've noticed and I share with my clients a lot is a lot of my clients do launches of some sort. And what I tell them is
Hmm.
when you're launching right now, you're actually selling your next launch or the launch after that more so than you're selling the current one. Because for somebody who's seeing you for the first time, yeah, there's going to be quick starts. There always are, where you just so
Hmm.
happen to have exactly what they need right this second and they're willing to just
Yep.
jump right in. But generally speaking, I find things have a longer tail than we all wish that they did. And people stick around for a
Oh yeah.
while and they're curious and they look. And what you do today is actually selling something maybe 6 months from now, maybe longer from now, depending on what that is. Do you find that as well?
So, Krista, I don't know. Have you put up a bug in my office here, because you just described what I call the iceberg theory, right? And the iceberg theory for me goes like this. And by the way, I developed the iceberg theory kind of off the back of my own experience, but at the same time reading the book, the Blue Ocean Strategy. And the Blue Ocean Strategy is a great book for anyone listening here who has not read it. For the sake of the time of this podcast, I'm just going to recommend that if you're in marketing, everyone needs to read that book. It's about market disruption and how do you create in a space for your business, your message, your product in a very competitive market. How do you create blue ocean space where there's no one there. There's no one playing in that space. And it's interesting because when I read that book, I was in the mortgage industry, super competitive, in the real estate industry, super competitive. But how did I carve out a mechanism in a very crowded marketplace, which was really where I cut my chops in marketing, and really what I really feel like I cut my chops in marketing as well as digital starting in 2003. You just nailed it, right? So the point that I like to make with the iceberg theory is that iceberg scientifically, scientists say they, you know, 90% of the iceberg sits beneath the surface of the water and we can't see it. 10% or so sits above the water. I like to say that 10% of your active prospects are visible to you above the water. And if we approach every marketing campaign with the idea that just 10% of the entire marketplace that could buy your product or service is even visible. And by the way, visible doesn't mean they're leaning towards you. And then if you recognize that 90% is beneath the water, how would you approach your market differently? How would you approach your marketing differently? By the way, the iceberg represents your market of buyers. So this one block of ice is your population of buyers. So it isn't that the people beneath the water are not qualified. It's just they haven't raised up above the surface to make themselves interested in you yet. So, without going too deep there, we talk a lot about it in my program, but it's a philosophy, it's a mindset shift. Everybody can see the same 10% that you can. What does that mean? When I go to Google Ads, every one of your advertisers can see the same one searching for that same keyword called probate attorney in your city. Everyone can see the LASIK eye center in this city. Everybody can see those primarily good keywords, and that's why they cost so much, right? That's why they cost so much. So the question is, if when I started my business, by the way, I was living my big transition happened. I was going through a very difficult time financially. You mentioned I've started 6 businesses. Well, all of them didn't go well. So at one point, I ended up living on my grandmother's couch with about $200 in my name, and I started a business. I had no dollars for marketing, so I had to think, what would I do? Because I have only really one shot at this, because I've only got a couple $100 to put in this campaign. Obviously, I did some of the ordinary things, which is one-on-one things. But if I do this one campaign, what one customer would I go after? What one customer is easiest to reach? What one customer has the problem that I could solve right now? But how would I approach it differently? And so for me, I went after people who owned a home, who had purchased it within the last 2 to 3 years, who had purchased their mortgage from a lender who was known to have given a loan to people with less than perfect credit, who had an interest rate that was at least 2 points above today's prime rate back then, who, if they didn't refinance, were likely going to see their rate go up, not down. And I invited them into that conversation to say, would you like to lower your interest rate by at least 2%? Give me a call. Do you see what I just did there? So I went in and I didn't just send some mass market direct mail. By the way, this was direct mail. I didn't just send this mass market direct mail campaign to 10,000 people. How many people in my marketplace would fit what I just described? Krista, what it turned out was it was maybe 150 to 300 on any given month. And I went and found out how to find those people, how to do the mailer, and then I had to take it one step further. I had to take it to the point where I customized the letter, I hand wrote the envelopes, and I very specifically told them by calculation on then a calculator how much money they actually could save. So I went to this very micro market who didn't actually, they were slightly under the water, by the way, because they hadn't already called me to look for a mortgage. But I knew something about them that would be a triggering event that they may or may not have known about, or they may have forgotten about it because it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago when they took out this loan and they didn't realize it was going to adjust in a couple of months. I would make sure I showed up within the 2 month window of that potential adjustment. And based on market conditions, I could guesstimate how much money they could save if their credit was better today than it was when they bought their home. Direct mail response rates were 0.5%. If you got 1% direct mail response rate back then, you were considered killing it. Krista, I was getting 3 to 4% on every mailer.
There's so
Why?
much amazingness in that story. Like, I love it.
And all of that story still works today
Mhm.
online. That's exactly how we do. So we're on the lean out. We're on the lean out podcast. I have a program called the Lean Growth Method and the Lean Marketing Plan, which is why we connected so well. That was a lean campaign. Why? Because I went so deep into my buyer's problem that if and only if I could get them to open the mail, I would expect that my messaging would resonate and they'd be like, who is this guy that knows all this stuff about me? And I didn't write their original loan. And I would pull, so on a 200 to 300 person mailing, I would maybe pull 3 to 7 new leads every mailing. Now, some would argue that the lazy people, they would, well, why are you handwriting the envelopes? Can't you just do the sticky labels and do the mail merge? Yeah, I could. Why are you actually calculating how much they would save by hand? Because I need to be different when they open the mail. Because back then it was 20 pieces of mail every time they opened their mailbox. Why would you handwrite the envelope? Because anything with a label on it had a bill in it. I mean, Krista, I went down the lane. Who sends handwritten stuff? People you know back
Mhm.
then. I went down the consumer psychology rabbit hole to make sure that I had the best chance possible of getting my mail open. Um, that's just one example of how we need to kind of do things today online. What I didn't realize then was that it would transition so well online. And then, of course, I found out in 2003, this was all like 2000 to 2003. And then I realized 2003 digital was about to take off. And I just started applying those same rules to landing pages and ad copy. And, so anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that wasn't too much of a rabbit hole, but um,
No, it was great because I wanna kinda dig into that a little bit, and then I do wanna talk about your dollar a day visibility strategy. But what I like so
yeah,
much
okay.
about that approach is it is the smart and really highly strategic way and absolutely a lean way to be approaching your marketing but it takes work up front, and a lot of people don't wanna do the work
Hmm.
up front. They're impatient, and so they spray and pray. They're
Yes.
like, "I'm just gonna go for the 10,000 people, and at
Yes.
least one of them out there is gonna
Yes.
be the right fit." Whereas if you instead do the
That's
work up
right.
front, you get really clear on who it is you can help, what problem you solve, and not the surface level problem, but you dig, right? When you went through your example, you said who probably about 5 or 6 times there. You didn't just stop at people who took out a mortgage. It was
I,
people who took out a mortgage who did this
I,
and this and this and this. It was the multi layers to
yes.
get to that micro niche. And when you actually
Yeah.
do the hard work up front, like Darrell just walked you through and like he helps you to do, it completely transforms the results that you get. And I think it can be so
Yeah.
discouraging. You're like, I've got this many people on my mailing list, and I sent an email to 10,000 people, and only 3 people were interested. Well, of those 10,000 people, did you segment them? Did you look at,
Yeah.
are you
Yeah.
reaching out to people who are actually interested in what you're talking about? Or are you spray and praying? So
Yeah.
I love that philosophy so
Yes.
much.
It just takes it. You're right. And I didn't even realize how many times I said who, but that's the exercise we work in. And I learned something called, I made up this name. I don't even remember who taught me this. The name of the trainer, I don't know, but it stuck in my mind. And you called it the same thing, right? It's not surface level. It's really digging in. And so the answer is you go 5 to 7 levels deep. I call it the 7 level deeps exercise in the way I talk about it. And that is what really is bothering them that's keeping them up at night. And when we go dig, 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 like I said, they got a mortgage 2, 3 years ago. They had bad credit. They had this rate. I mean, so there was this trail. And to me, good marketing meets people where they are. It's not spray and pray. It would have been easier for me to just write a check to an outsourced mail company and say, hey, send the thing to these people. And it just, I just had a feeling that it was not the right thing to do. And I also didn't have a big check to write to make that play out. So, um, it, and it works still to this day. So to the point of good marketing meets people where they are. Good marketing is thoughtful. It is strategic. It is specific, and it does take a little bit more work. But once you get it dialed in, you, I hate to use the phrase because I don't like to use it, but your customer acquisition model becomes almost like it's on autopilot. Um, Once you understand how to serve your customer and the problem that they're going to want to solve, and you realize that that whole iceberg is the marketplace for your business, and you just realize that some are beneath and some are above. But once you get the problem right, it's golden. It's golden.
So tell us how you do that and tell us about this dollar a day visibility strategy that you have.
All right, let's talk about the dollar a day visibility strategy first, because it actually it goes right into what we've been talking about. So everyone in my agency, when people come to work with us or they hire me for consulting or whatever, the number one complaint they have is lead generation. Now, if they're an e-commerce business like a company I talked to yesterday, their number one problem is I'm not converting enough customers through my website or my store or whatever that may be. So it's either sales or lead generation. Ultimately, what we find is that they don't have enough visibility, brand awareness, or in some cases, website traffic for the problem that they solve, right? I like to use offline examples that anyone can recognize. I'm a Adidas. I'm wearing a Nike shirt today, but I'm an Adidas clothing and shoe fan because their shoes just fit my feet better. But when I decide to walk into the Adidas store, I have volunteered with my 2 feet to cross the threshold of that store and invite myself into their world. And I'm only there for one reason. I either want shoes, shirts, hats, socks, right? I'm there with an intended purpose. Their salesperson's job is they're required to come up to me and say, "Hey, can we help you today?" Like they're required to do that. But in our world, sometimes online, we're not even visible for the people to find our store. We think because we have the website or because we put the Facebook page up, because we have the Instagram profile, the Twitter profile, now the Threads profile, the Threads app now with Meta, they just launched it today. Um, we're not doing enough to be visible. So what I recommend is a very simple strategy that any business can use. And everyone says, I don't have enough budget. I just need to keep my money focused on lead generation and sales. I'm like, well, you're going to miss a ton of marketplace because most of the people are beneath the water. So how do we get people beneath the surface of the water, not beneath the water, but beneath the surface of the water to know who you are? Because they could need you or someone they know could need you. The same old KLT, no like trust. And so the structure of the campaign is very simple. If we understand our buyers' problems and we understand what ultimately would keep them up at night, if I went back 20 years and did that mortgage example again, if I know that that person knows that their mortgage is going to go up in 2 months, potentially by 2%, then what questions would be on their mind relative to making sure their rate doesn't go up, but actually could go down if the market has actually gone down in rate? So it's as simple as identifying the 3, 5, 7, 10 top frequently asked questions that that person could have if they wanted to reduce their interest rate. Then we create content. I prefer video. It works best with video, especially on almost every platform today. And with Meta, we'll stick with Meta, Facebook, Instagram. You can start the campaign for $1 a day, and you simply answer one of those frequently asked questions in under 1 minute for each question. And you then target your market with the intent that only the person with that problem is going to watch it. You let that campaign run, and people will start to consume your content only if they have that problem. And where people mess up the marketing is the specificity of the message in the video and the ad copy. So it's a very simple structure. Remember, I said in the mortgage example, it was the person who got the mortgage, who got it from this company, who we knew sold higher than, prime interest rates to people with less than perfect credit. Who. Well, that's exactly how you write your ad copy. So let's just say hypothetically, if I wrote that ad copy today, and this is on the fly, so forgive me if I get it butchered, but I'm going to be very specific in the ad copy. I'm going to say you if you happen to have a mortgage above prime by 2% or more, and would like to lower the rate, watch this video. That would be as straightforward. Now, if someone sees that ad in their newsfeed and they do not have a mortgage that's above prime, by the way, I don't even know if those loans exist today, but if they don't have that problem and they are not interested in lowering it, then they should skip the video. The algorithm will find the people who start clicking on the video and start finding more and more people like them who, because see, I can't go into the platform and say just target people with a mortgage above prime. So my concept is your ad creative and your ad copy are the targeting. So what you say in the video and what you say in the copy leading to someone wanting to watch the video is in fact the targeting. You almost don't need targeting today because the vast majority of us, there is no targeting feature that says find me an entrepreneur who's been in business for 30 years, who has been great offline but now sucks online, and they've tried Facebook 32 times and it didn't work. I can't find that person with a targeting feature. I can only find them with an ad creative, my voice, my face, my expertise, and a little bit of ad copy that says, do this if this applies to you. If it doesn't apply to you, don't do it. And by letting that campaign run, you're going to start to get the algorithm to find more and more people who are like your ideal customer. And that's the difference. That's how it works. And you only need $1 a day if you're starting on Facebook. I don't recommend $1 a day, but no one can make an excuse because it starts at $1 a day. I do recommend the campaign to be more of a $5 a day campaign so that you cycle in 3 to 5 videos because you don't know which question might be on someone's mind, and then you do use whatever targeting features are available, and you just let it run. And I like to call it an always on campaign, very much that you would see television ads that run all the time, except these television ads are television ads. This sort of digital version of television ad, in my case, I believe it's going to be more effective than television ever was because television was just spray and pray. Let's just put it on the channel at 8 o'clock because we know this many people watch this show. And let's just hope that we get enough brand impressions with our law firm or with our HVAC company or whatever. Big brands can do that, but we're being very specific here.
One of the things that I love so much about your approach to things and just the way that you think and structure things is I feel like most people really dabble in hope-based marketing. It's all, "I'm just gonna do
Hmm.
this and hope that it works." And what you talk about
Yeah.
is so much about the specificity, it's about really digging in and understanding the problem, it's about being really intentional, but I also like that you're looking at not doing the exact same obvious thing that every single other person is doing, competing for the exact same 10% above the water leads in your iceberg theory that everyone else is competing against, and that you're also taking an approach where people can start to build that brand awareness and visibility without putting all of their risk and kind of all their hopes and dreams on this one big campaign that must convert and must generate this huge amount of revenue, which is what I see so many people do. They try to go straight into cold ads, must buy now. They're going to see my live webinar, my
Yes.
live training, and they're going to immediately make this huge purchase decision. And they put so much money in. And if it's not working, well, then the mistake is clearly they just need to put more money on ads because it's the fact that they aren't over investing in ads. So you just keep piling more and more and more on and
Yeah.
wondering why it's not
Yeah.
working. Whereas you're actually looking at
Yeah.
this very strategically, very intentionally at, no, how do we find the right people, solve the right problems, raise visibility and awareness so that when we do put our offers in front of people, it's the right people, they're warmed up and they're actually interested in buying.
100%. 100%. And again, it takes time and it takes patience. You couldn't have summarized it any better. The reality is, I think if you're going to do things in marketing day, you got to be thinking about what's different. By the way, I'm all for launching. I'm all for
Oh,
converting now
yeah,
buyers.
for
Let me be
sure.
clear about that. I'm all for converting today buyers. That group that's in the 10%, get your share. Get your share. But if your whole marketing campaign is just looking for today's buyer, the now buyer, you're missing so much. You're leaving so much on the table. Quick story. I'm going to go back to the mortgage days just because I'm going to go into the agency world. We had a dentist come out of dental school in 2015. He approached our agency. He obviously was just getting started in his city, a little city in Iowa. He's still our customer to this day. But in 2015, he didn't have the budget to afford an agency to do the work for him. So we have a training program. We've always believed in teaching those who are not ready to hire and outsource the work to an agency. So he took our program and then he started doing his own marketing. He did it for 2 years, did pretty well with it. In fact, he was really a good student of taking the lessons and doing the work, which is fascinating to me because most people buy stuff and never consume it and then they say it didn't work. But that's for another conversation. Anyway, 2 years later, mind you, we had one meeting. We found out he wasn't really positioned to hire the agency. He bought the program. It might have been $100, $200 at the time. It was super, super inexpensive. He did the work. 2 years later, the phone call goes like this: "Hey, Darrell, I took the course. Everything's been working. I now don't have enough time because my practice has grown. Can you guys take over and do the work for me now?" Do you know how easy that close was? You know how long it took me? You know how much work I had to do to sell him? Not very much. I literally sent him a contract and he got started. He was a client with us all the way through the pandemic. The pandemic happened. He got sidelined, but then he came back when he bought another practice, and so he's still been our client this whole time. The goal is he was interested, but he wasn't qualified at the moment. It wasn't the right time. And I follow a very distinct process. And I always think about this when I meet a prospect. I use IBM came up with this. It's called BANT, BANT: budget, authority, need, and timing. All four of those should be in place if they are ready to become a customer today. Here's the thing: as a business, as an expert, as a service provider, as a course creator, as a whatever you do, consultant, coach, or whatever, we don't control the timing. They do. They could have their budget today. They could believe that your problem is, or you're the solution provider that they want to work with today. They could technically have the need today, but there's just something wrong with the timing. So I just say, I'm only interested in trying to figure out which one of those I can control. And the only one I can control is whether they believe that my solution will help them when they're ready. So I spend all my time in the A category. That goes back to the dollar a day strategy. All I want you to do is when you come back to me, I want you to say something like, "I've been seeing your videos all over the place. I've been getting your emails for the last 2 years. I actually believe what you believe. When can we get started?" So I focus on the A. I build trust and authority. I don't care about the budget. I don't care about their today's need. I don't care about their timing. I assume that if you have this problem, there will be someday you'll want to solve it. And if you want to solve it, you should actually come through me. And by that time, you should believe I'm the only person in the world who can solve it. Now, is that the way it works out all the time? No, but that's the intention of my marketing. That's my intention. I will tell you how to solve your own problem without me. If you're capable, please just go do that. Right? And I just take a counterintuitive approach. So I spend all of my time, and that's where the dollar a day strategy fits in. It fits into the A: build trust and authority. If we go back to the 20 years ago, 30 years ago, offline, know, like, trust, that's what I spend time on. That's all the strategy is designed to do. And eventually, when people are ready, they will buy. You don't have to sell anything. I've never sold anything in my life, ever. Now, I've sold a lot of stuff, made a lot of money, but I don't sell. I help. I help. And I can do that easily because I'm going to say the same thing to you as I'm going to say to the next person and the next person and the next person. So I might as well get leverage and put it on a dollar a day campaign and let that just go out to the marketplace.
Brilliant.
So that's how it works.
So for those who are listening and are like, okay, yeah, I need that now. Tell people where they can find you, where they can connect with you, and where they can learn more about what you do.
Yeah, so everything comes through growthdrivenentrepreneur.com. That's kind of our new platform for 2023. It's our new community. It's the name of the new show. And we actually have the dollar a day masterclass available inside the community. So you can come in and go a little deeper with this conversation. If you just head over to growthdrivenentrepreneur.com, you come into the community for free, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction from there.
Excellent. And I want to give just another little slight plug. Is another way that you can learn a little bit more about Darrell and his work is by joining us in a live event that we have coming up really soon called Accelerate Now. So if you did not already go and register for the event when you heard Darrell on the podcast last time, head to joinaccelerate.now.com and get registered for that event. It's both of us as well as two 2 other incredible business growth experts. So you definitely will want to catch that and learn more
That's
about
right.
the magic that Darrell does with marketing. So, Darrell, thank you so much for being here. I want to round this out with the one question that I ask everybody. And knowing that you leverage lean so much in your business, I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. But how do you work smarter, not harder, and keep things lean in your business?
Krista, over the years, I'm better at this at times than other times, but mostly the way to get lean is to say no more often. I say no to new pieces of software. I say no to meetings that I have no business taking. I say no to doing tasks that are not in my best gift. I believe in team. I believe in people operating within their superstar DNA, which is their superstar definite natural ability. As much as possible, I try to stay in mine. There obviously it's not a utopian business world, so we can't always stay in our unique gift. But as much as possible, I try to say no to those things that pull me away from where we're trying to go. And in fact, my first answer to here's how I open email every day. I hit select all, which means that means every email, if I've got 50 in my inbox, I hit select all. That means they're available for being deleted. I uncheck those that I don't need to delete. And then I get rid of 50 and it goes down to 14, right? So in other words, do I know who sent it to me? Is there a subject line that matters to me? Is it something I was already waiting on? And so I delete. So I start with the answer of no so that I can try to stay as focused on what we are supposed to be doing because there's no shortage of distraction in today's world.
I love it. Absolutely brilliant. So I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. Darrell, thanks so much for being here. I am sure I will have you
Thanks for
back on
having
the
me.
show again to talk more marketing magic. Head over to growthdrivenentrepreneur.com to learn more, and you will find that link and all of the others down in the show notes. We will see you again next week. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. I hope you got a lot of value and actionable insights from today's show and would love if you take a moment to leave us a review. If you have any questions on today's episode or on how to lean out your business, join us over in our private Facebook community where every week we do live training and Q&A, and I'd love to have you be part of the conversation. Head to leanoutmethod.com/group to join us. And before you go, be sure to subscribe to the show so you're the first to know when we release a new episode. We'll see you next week.